Alright guys, so take a look at this bike. This is an Indian Super Chief, a 2022, which is the first 2022 that I've ever ridden. So take a look at this. This is really interesting. Alright, kickstand. Alright, let's see if I can get this thing going here. You hit the button, the power button. Oh, I turned it off. That was weird. Oh, that was kind of weird too. It almost kind of slightly pulled me forward, even though I was in neutral. All right, so let's see if I can get used to this friction zone here. That's weird. That's kind of an interesting. It doesn't have a lot of low-end torque on this, so this would be a kind of an interesting ride. I think I'm just going with one other person because it's kind of like the end of the day. They set up really late here. As a matter of fact, I might be here tomorrow. Look at all those bikes they have. All those Indians. Pretty wild. Just a couple of them are 2022s. I definitely want to ride some of these smaller bikes. But this last ride we were gone for like an hour, which is kind of crazy. Alright, so let's see if I can get used to these floorboards. Alright. Interesting. So far, so good. Feels like kind of like a street bob. Interesting windshield, like the perfect size windshield. Let's see, we are gonna go left. Let's see. Alright. I like this bike. This is like one of the ones you want to just cruise around town on. Stiffer suspension, it has a lot of power. It seems like, oh yeah, that's a really stiff suspension. Alright. Yeah, this is kind of what you'd expect, huh? It's kind of like the same suspension you'd see on a street mob. We're gonna actually go on a, well, that's kind of interesting. It has this weird digital dash. It looks like it's made of paper. It doesn't even look like it's digital. It's so weird. And it's a touchscreen too, which is pretty wild. Brakes seem pretty good, actually. Just a fun little bike. It's pretty loud too. It's a pretty good sound to it. It still has that weird kind of on these Indians. It seems like the throttle is not instant. It's like there's a little bit of play. Like you have to give it like an inch of throttle before the throttle actually kicks in, which is weird. But you know, kind of the weird thing is I'm getting used to the friction zone on these Indians. It seems like the friction zone is kind of weird because you pull in the clutch, like right here. You pull up to a stop, and then when you're letting out the clutch, it's like you can let it way out, way out, way out. Oh, this one's not as bad as the other one, actually. It's kind of interesting. It'd be interesting to actually measure the distance from... Wow. This one is just a fun bike. It's really comfortable, too. You know, for me, being 6'4", 230 pounds, it's probably one of the more comfortable bikes with floorboards, even though my knees are kind of up above the tank. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the seat or the seating position or something like that. I don't know what it is, but it just seems really comfortable. It seems like a really fun bike. Obviously, on this one, you can't adjust the height of the windscreen. You're pretty much stuck with what you got. But it's a pretty good height. Let's see, we're going 55, so it's pretty good for 55. Not bad at all. So I noticed the brakes were really good on this. It seemed like, I'd say the back brakes better than your standard brakes, like on your, kind of like your smaller cruiser. So let's see, we're in top gear, going 60 miles an hour at 2,000 RPM. Wow, wow. This one, wow, it's geared. more for the highway, which is kind of surprising actually. So I'm kind of a big friction zone guy. I'm always looking for the friction zones. You know, it's kind of like the big thing about the handling of the bike. I'm all about the kind of the stability on the road. This one seems really super stable. I was wondering, like in the turns, so I'm thinking maybe this one would be a little bit harder to turn because it's got a really thick front tire. And the thick front tire kind of has the trade-off. So on the thicker tire, it's more stable on the highway. We're going 60. I can't believe we're going 60 at 2,000 RPM. I just can't get over that. That's amazing. And kind of the funny thing on this one is the handlebars are not fuzzy at all, going 60 just because you're at a lower RPM. This is actually geared pretty much for the highway. Wow. I'm actually really impressed with this bike. It's comfortable, it feels really stable. The one thing that I would upgrade is the suspension. As far as the stance, it's a very super upright position. I'm actually surprised. It's almost completely upright where you're not leaning at all in this. So the back brakes, pretty good. Front brakes, not as good as some of the other ones maybe. So I just came off of acceleration pretty good. This really gets on it. So the other kind of, the interesting thing is when you have kind of a rough suspension. So we're going 65. A lot of the appearance of stability going fast really depends on your suspension. So if you have a really plush suspension, it seems like it's a lot more stable going high speed. So you can definitely tell it kind of feels, you can definitely feel it has the rougher suspension. But because of that front fat tire, gives you, it's kind of a trade-off where you feel a lot more planted on the road, where it's really super, not twitchy at all. Like if you move the front end, it's like really super solid, which is, oh yeah, you really have to push into it around these corners. That's because of that big front tire. Yeah, you have to really push into it. This is a pretty cool bike. Probably one of the funnest bikes. I'd say when it comes to power, it doesn't have, I would say it could use a little bit more power as far as, you know, a cruiser, kind of a, of course, it depends on what gear you're into. I'm at a really low RPM. I think if I could really kind of wound it out a little bit more, I'd have more power. I just can't believe I'm going 60 and I'm like at 2,000 RPM. It's amazing. I just can't even believe it. So let's see, 3,000. Let's see where I'm at 3,000. 3,000. I'm at 80 at 3,000 RPM. Wow. There's quite a bit of buffeting up there. I'm just a little bit too tall for the buffeting on this bike. But you could really cruise on the highway on this thing. I'd say I would probably get a different windshield for going long-term 80. That's kind of the, you know, I'm going 65. The windshield's fine now. It's a little bit choppy, but not really buffeting that much. But now when I was going 80, I felt like I needed to duck down a little bit. If you're a little bit shorter, you can feel a lot of wind on your legs compared to like on those big baggers that I just got off of where there's no wind. And on a hot day like today where it's pretty warm, it's kind of nice that you actually have that wind. Yeah, stable enough to put a hand out and wave at a biker at 65, which is pretty good. Still quite a bit of wind. Yeah, once you get above 70, there, for me, it's a lot of buffeting where you kind of shake your head around a little bit. Pretty common with a lot of your windshields. Some are better, some are worse. It really depends on how big you are and how big the windshield is. A lot of different factors. There's a lot of things you can do to correct the buffeting too. But yeah. Pretty nice. Nice around the corner. Nice and stable. Let's see about really super slow speed stability. Pretty good. Not as good as some, I'd say, but better than one with like a skinny tire. This is definitely a fun bike. Well, that's interesting. So taking off like that, I could feel a lot of vibration in the back of my seat, like where the seat kind of hits my tailbone right there, which is weird. It's like there's not much padding, but it kind of seems like it kind of pushes me back a little bit more in my seat, which is good since I'm really tall. I'd say as far as getting used to this bike, it's pretty easy to get used to. Probably one of the easier ones to get used to. You know, some bikes are really hard to kind of get used to. I think it's that front tire that really helps. Jump on and you can go and you feel really stable. So would I buy this bike? Yeah, I would buy this bike. Ooh. Wow, I'm going 70. You don't even know you're going 70. Still just a little over 2,000 RPM, which just blows me away. It's kind of deceiving because it doesn't feel like you're going that fast on this bike. Yeah, so when you let off the gas, it feels like the engine's not even running. It's so quiet. So as far as the mirrors, I absolutely love these Indian mirrors. They're really bowed out to where you can see a whole lot behind you. Probably the best mirrors of any motorcycle that I've seen, which is pretty awesome. I know there's actually several ride modes you can go into. I think I'm in the lowest ride mode, which is the road mode, I think. So I don't know if I can actually. Oh, I can work this touchscreen with. Oh yeah, there we go. So look, there's a sport mode. Oh, okay. So now in sport mode. Wow, I can't believe the touchscreen works with your gloves. That's awesome. Alright, so we'll try it in... Whoa! Wow! This thing's got a lot more power. Alright, so I take that back. It doesn't have enough power? Yeah, that's because I had this thing dumbed down in road mode. And I was actually in tour mode. There's tour, standard, and sport mode. Wow. Wow, why did they do that? Yeah, alright. So this thing does have, this has a surprising amount of power, actually. Yeah. Has a lot of power. Plenty of power. Almost too much power. The other thing is now in this mode, when you let off of the throttle, this thing has a lot of power now. Alright. This is like a completely different bike now that I'm in sport mode. I can't believe it. Wow. It's like they really dumbed it down in that tour mode. So yeah, when you let off the throttle, it really has a lot of engine brake in the sport mode, more so than in the tour mode, which is pretty interesting. It seems like with your electric bikes, you have just the opposite. Or if you go in kind of the dumbed down mode, you have a lot more engine braking, and then this one, you have more of the engine braking in the sport mode. Which you would think that's where you would need the engine braking in the sport mode. And these do have auto-canceling blinkers, which is pretty nice, similar to your Harley-Davidsons. You can manually turn them off, or you can have them auto-turn off. It seems like it even has almost a different sound now that it's in sport mode. But yeah, this is a really fun bike. Really super planted. Pretty nice. It seems like it wants to jump in sport mode, which is kind of interesting. Pretty nice, pretty nice. This is one of the nicer bikes as far as a small bike, I'd say. Alright. Alright. Yeah, these have really interesting kickstands on them compared to the Harley Davidsons. All right, guys, that was the Super Chief Limited. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.